If you made it this far in the course, I want to take a second to congratulate you, because even if you might not immediately feel it, from this video on, we are touching stuff that is at the very heart of version control and what is so great about it. A lot of the stuff so far was about necessary technicalities like file statuses or tools like the diff tools, but now we will talk about how you can actually structure your projects to make them cleaner, more understandable, and maintainable. The first ingredient we need for that are branches. I will start with an important distinction. Branches are just a tool. In this video, we will only talk about how to technically use that tool. So, how can I use branches in Plastic? Branches are not a specific Plastic concept, however. Many version control systems have branches with slight variations, so branches are also a general concept. And as always in computer science, many people through the years had a lot of ideas on how to use them correctly. There are many discussions and prescriptions on how to correctly use branches, and typically you can sum them up under the term branching strategies. We will have a short discussion on branching strategies because the creators of Plastic also have an opinion on the topic, and they clearly recommend one specific branching strategy, but this is not the topic of this video. So in the next minutes, I'm going to ignore any of those strategies. For now, I'm purely interested in the technical aspect of branches in Plastic. So if branches were a piano, in this video we will talk about what a piano is made of and how you can press the keys. We are, however, not saying anything about how to make actual music with it. We are in a new empty Unity project once again, and all I want to do in preparation is to add a plane to the scene and check it in. Now let's switch to Plastic and talk about branches. We can create our first branch by right-clicking on a change set and choosing Create Branch from this change set. Let's call this branch Cubes because we will add some cubes in a second. When we confirm, this is what we get. So what did we just create? Or in other words, what is a branch in Plastic? Apart from the name, we can see that three things appeared. The first thing is a very short version of a rounded line. This represents the fact that a branch is a container for change sets. You can see this better on the main branch where the line is spanning across all the change sets we have so far. The second thing is an arrow which is pointing to the change set from which we created the branch. So, as the metaphor of a branch might suggest, a branch is never on its own, but rather starts at a particular change set. If you prefer, you might also say that it has a parent. The parent has the initial project state from which we want to branch off from. In our case, that's just the scene with the plane. And finally, the last piece is the house icon, which is telling us that our local workspace is currently set to this branch. Here you can see one important difference to Git, for example, because in Plastic you cannot just check out a change set, but also a branch. So to sum up, a branch is a container for change sets, which has a particular change set as its origin or parent. I can create as many branches as I want to. Let's create another one and call it Spheres, which gives us the same result, considering that the house icon can obviously be at only one branch because we only have one workspace. In Unity, we can see on which branch we are when we look at the location string at the bottom, or take a look at the Branches tab. Since I'm on the Spheres branch, let's start adding some spheres and create a couple of change sets. Back in Plastic, we can see what happens. All 3 new change sets are organized in the new branch, which is indicated by the rounded line. If I want to switch to another branch, I can do that again by right-clicking and switching the workspace. I hope that you are not surprised that when we go back to Unity, we don't have our spheres anymore, since they were only added to the other branch. This branch is called Cubes, so let's this time add cubes. When we update Plastic, we can see that the branch sort of moved to the right, which makes sense because remember that the horizontal distribution is based on time. So the most recent changes end up furthest to the right. We can now seamlessly inspect the work on the other branches by switching to them, which will always use the state of the last change set on the branch. Here we can see the spheres. And on the main branch, we can see the project with only the added plane again. I hope you can start to see how this can be a useful tool in order to organize logical units of your project. Obviously, the main branch is not the only one that we can branch off from. We can just as easily use the cubes branch as origin for a new branch. Let's call this one red cubes. When we create the child branch, you can see that it automatically used the last change set as origin. And because of that, in Unity, we get the state where the cubes are already added. You can guess why we called the branch red cubes. And this is the final result in Plastic. Again, we can visit any other branch or change set from here. For example, at this point we added the second sphere, and that's what we can see in Unity. Obviously, what can be added can also be removed. So for example, maybe we decided to stay with the cubes and don't like the spheres anymore. In Plastic, we can choose the branch and choose to delete it. We said that a branch is a container, so deleting the container will also delete its contents. In this case, the 3 change sets. So Plastic warns us if we really know what we are doing, because our work on this branch will be lost in this case. What do you think will happen if I try to remove the cubes branch? Fortunately, Plastic is smart enough to not allow this, because it has a child which could not be recreated when we remove the parent. So if we really want to remove the cubes branch, we would first have to remove its child branch. Okay, I think that's enough for a first tour with branches. Obviously, from now on, they will be our good friend and we will use them extensively. Branches are a great way to have isolated pieces of work which don't interfere with each other. But at some point, we will need some of the work in our main project branch. For that, we need the next tool under our belt, which is called merging. Let's take a look at that in the next section.